What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck here again. Okay, so I wanted to do a follow-up video regarding this Titanic submersible that imploded. This has gone viral, and I actually did a video earlier today talking about the just the dangers of this voyage and how, you know, and it was, of course, my opinion that, it would be nice if there was a way to maybe raise parts of the ship. But one of my LLC supporters brought it to my attention, and it actually is something I didn't even think about, about the fact that the hull and the ship has been underwater for over 110 years. And good point. It's used to that pressure. It probably would not even be able to withstand being raised out of the water, especially with the exposure to the seawater versus, bringing it out of that element that has been under for over 100 years. So, my, one of the supporters, they basically help bring that information to light. And I wanted to do a follow-up to kind of get it right and make sure that even with it having been my opinion, just to still have some knowledge behind that, and to make sure that I share facts as well. I have a simulation. I've asked the YouTube channel if I can use the video, a clip of their video of the simulation. I think is a very good simulation that has been used a couple times. I think it's been shared so far from Kostack Studio, and it is a simulation for the submarine ARA San Juan. But I think just the idea and the concept of what an implosion looks like is something that, a lot of people probably have not been exposed to seeing, and just kind of need to know what that looks like in real time and how catastrophic it can be and the damage that can be done. That is what happened as well on the original Titanic. The original Titanic had an implosion. It went 13,000 feet under water, which is an insurmountable amount of pressure. And the ship, of course, split in half and broke on the way down, but it also imploded. And so it's important to show that visual so that, some people can kind of capture that mentally in their mind. I've never seen any object just implode at all with my own two eyes. So that visual sometimes helps as well, to be able to see exactly what that looks like. And I also just want to, of course, give my condolences to the families. One of the young men on this ship was 19-year-old. In my mind, still a baby. He hasn't been able to really, he had his whole life ahead of him. He didn't get the chance to really do all the things that, you want your kids to grow up and learn and experience in life and being a mother. It just has to be heartbreaking to know that, the 19-year-old kid wanted to see the wreckage of the Titanic. And unfortunately, this incident, this horrible incident that honestly in so many ways could have been avoided with, better structural integrity and making sure that things are certified. And we as consumers as well have to make those demands and ensure that if we do embark upon, any activity where you're spending your money, you want the quality to still remain. You still want that quality factor to be there. There's no shame in asking, if you take any endeavor in life that involves, any contraption of any sort, for a high risk adventure or high risk, journey, asking what is your safety measures? What is your plan of action in case something goes wrong? Ask those questions. If there's a fire on board, or if there is something that happens with the hull or wiring, or, anything regarding the structural integrity, what do you have outlined and set up, to kind of remedy those situations, and how do you plan on trying to solve this in real time? Now, mind you, you can have all the plans that you could ever think of on earth lined out. When you're in a real situation, it doesn't always go the way you plan for it to go. However, there's some comfort in knowing that there's a plan of action that exists. And for the amount of money that these 5 people were, paying to take this voyage down to the Titanic, because it's not the only voyage that's occurred through history. I mean, James Cameron, Bob Ballard, they've all taken, trips down. Many more people have taken trips down to see the wreck of the Titanic itself. I think James Cameron stated that he had gone to see the Titanic over 30 times. So it is very possible to take that voyage and to see the Titanic. It's also possible to do it in a very safe manner where it doesn't cost anybody their life. It's still high risk, but if you do things the right way, even if it just means being a perfectionist, I'd rather you call me a perfectionist and make sure that the submersible is up to standard, it is safe, it is certified, it's going to protect the passengers on board. I'd rather be called a perfectionist and be able to take that voyage down, and even if there are others that accompany me, and then come back safely, than to shortcut. There's no benefit to shortcutting when you're talking about people's lives and safety put in the line of fire. And in my first video I did earlier today, it would be nice to have it raised, but it would be, impossible regarding physics and science and nature. It just, the erosion, the exposure to the ocean water, and the pressure over all these years. Like one of the supporters, my supporters in the LLC stated, and thank you. I appreciate when people point out information that I need to brush up on and share and read about more and share accurately. I appreciate that. I definitely wanted to do this the right way. So, but yeah, those factors considered, it would be impossible to probably raise the Titanic. It would be nice if that could happen, but realistically speaking, it would be damn near impossible. So if the only option to visiting the wreckage firsthand is to go into a submersible to do that, you want that submersible to be built and established and tested and tried and true, and tested and tested and then tried and true as many times as possible, to make sure that it's safe. And at least you can check off those boxes that you've done everything you could the right way before you take this voyage and you take other people's lives, down there with you. So it's just a sad situation. I can imagine how people felt over 100 years ago when the Titanic itself, sank, to the bottom of the ocean, and you had over 1,500 lives lost. So I think that sense of just that overwhelming feeling in real time is something new for a lot of people out there. I don't, there's some descendants of those who survived the Titanic, but I think in real time, just the humane factor in this is really something new for people. And like I said, I can imagine how those loved ones felt when the Titanic sunk, this is just as hard hitting, I think, in my opinion, is because this is what's happening and unfolding in real time. Even if it's 5 people, that's still 5 lives lost. And it is overwhelming, and it's sad, and it's, hard to kind of, witness this happening with something that was so relatable to what catastrophically happened. I'm sorry, something that happened that was so catastrophic over 100 years ago with the Titanic sinking. Now you have a submersible that imploded around the same, close to the proximity of the debris field of the Titanic itself. It's just a little jarring, and that's just my personal opinion. But I'm going to share a couple videos, and I'm definitely going to share the simulation of the video that I found. You guys, make sure you check out Kostack Studios YouTube channel. I did send a comment asking if I could use the video, just the simulation, so that you guys can see this in real time, because these are types of incidences that you don't see happening on the surface. It happens in, under great depths of pressure and water. So it's something that many people probably will never see, and you have to only really see it through simulation. So I think it's, best to show this so that people can see the realities of what an implosion looks like, and the effect of pressure, especially underwater, could have on any, sub at all, and the integrity of the sub itself and the hull of that sub. So I want to play this video that just kind of talks about the 5 people that were in the sub, and then show the simulation.
That sub, billionaire Hamish Harding, businessman Shahzada Dawood, his 19-year-old son Suleiman, researcher and diver P.H. Nargioleh, and Stockton Rush, CEO of Oceangate, the deep water tourism company that makes the Titan sub. Overnight, search and rescue crews facing treacherous weather as focus zeroed in on an area where a Canadian aircraft detected banging noises underwater with sonar on both Tuesday and Wednesday morning.
I find it interesting that there was some noises detected, but I don't know if I caught the part of the news yet where they talk about the time lapse between the sub going into the water and touching the floor, or the hull of the Titanic itself, or the ocean floor, and the time that it took to actually, implode once it hit the surface. I don't know. I don't think I've come across that video yet, but I'm sure that there's going to be more information coming out over the next day or so that can kind of give a timeline between the sub being released, going into the water, touching the bottom, and then between the point of impact and the point of implosion, and just kind of give just a visual of what that looked like time wise. So that might clear up, what those noises truly were, unless they were capturing the noises or the banging sounds of the actual implosion itself. Now that's just my theory right now. Maybe those noises were real-time noises of the implosion. So I'm gonna stay on top of this, and because I literally enjoy, I'm a kind of like a connoisseur of Titanic history. I've seen so many documentaries. I've even seen all the documentaries that James Cameron has released, and it is intriguing. It would be, like I said, nice to be able to see that, in person, but seeing that it will be impossible to raise out of the water, many of us will never be able to go see it at the bottom of the ocean. But just so you guys know that there are museums where there are artifacts on display from the actual ship itself that was retrieved, and there's, as of course, there are always documentaries and firsthand accounts that you guys can check out on YouTube. There are even interviews that were done, recorded interviews that were done of some of the original survivors. And these interviews are older interviews. They were back in the 50s and 60s. But even with the firsthand accounts from those who survived the Titanic wreck itself, you know, it still gives some glimpse of history from their account and from their perspective. And I know one of the videos is like 2 or 3 hours long. So if you're, you know, able to just put in some headbutts and listen to those interviews, you know, feel free to check those interviews out. I'm gonna try to find those videos and just link all the videos in the description. But I think those would just be, you know, good as well to just listen to and get some firsthand information from those who were on the ship and survived the, you know, of course, the Titanic sinking, and was able to, you know, tell their versions of what happened and, you know, their experience overall. So that's, to me, that's my theory now. Like I said, I'm going to keep paying attention and following and making sure that any information that comes out, especially anything with the timeline and something that can definitely clear up what the noises were, exactly, because I think they reported they heard the noises twice. But I'm gonna definitely touch on it as much as I can. So I'm going to show you guys the actual simulation video, and I will link this video. It is on YouTube. I will link it to the description here, just so you guys can see an example. This is not the actual simulation for the Titanic submersible, but this is just a simulation of an implosion on a underwater sub itself. So you guys can see what this looks like in real time. Similar to, not the exact same, but similar to the Titanic, except the Titanic split on the way down to the ocean floor. This simulation here, it still shows like the top part of that hull connected, but you can imagine this being much, much smaller. And of course, you know, having 5 people in something that could have been like a third of the size of this sub, or even a fourth of the size of it. I mean, it was small. And even in something this big like this, or even the Titanic, you can imagine, oh man, there's no hope for a human body if you see this happening with, you know, a hull made out of metal and much harder and durable material. Good Lord. It's still kind of like compressing. And this is from the inside. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. So this is the video here of a simulation, and they show, you know, outside looking in and inside out. And I think the same, they have also simulations on vehicles and a truck and a car here. But you can just imagine, you know, in real time what that would have looked like for the sub. It is just heartbreaking, to say the least. But I hope to, just clarify and make sure I state accurate. Even I was stating, kind of upset earlier today, because it was like, how avoidable was this, truly? And is it really worth, people's lives and safety to see this wreckage? And I mean, this is unfortunately the only way to see it, and it has been done many, many, many times in the past, between most notably Bob Ballard and of course James Cameron and other, groups that have been able to journey down to see the Titanic wreckage itself. But I don't know if I've heard of any other submersible imploding. I don't, and I have to look and make sure. But as far as I have heard and discovered, I think this is my first time hearing, for me personally, a submersible that has imploded, trying to take a voyage down to see the Titanic wreckage. So I'm going to dive more into that, but I just wanted to, show the simulation and correct, myself with my wild theory of the Titanic being raised. It was just, my thoughts flowing earlier today, and yeah, it would be impossible, thinking of it from a scientific sense. It definitely will be impossible. So thank you to my LLC supporter, Gerard. You're awesome. And I don't want to take down my previous video, because it was just me kind of spitballing and sharing my thoughts out loud, and just hearing overall as more news is reported on and unfolding, that it could have, definitely gone much more, that the voyage itself could have gone much more smoothly. And because cutting corners is just, it has this effect to where it doesn't just hurt the people who were lost in their family and the grief is causing, but it's just, even on the concept of wanting to go to see the Titanic and the wreckage, now you have to make sure you're dealing and operating with a company, or whomever's taking people down to the wreckage for the Titanic, that they're credible and they're doing things the right way, and it is safe, that you're gonna, or you or your loved one or your family or friend, they're gonna go down there and come back, as opposed to it being so risky to where it could end up being a deterrence. And so there are some people who will still go regardless, because they understand that being the risk. But I think some of that risk could be mitigated better, just having a better plan. Like I said, James Cameron has gone down over 30 times. So it is very possible for people to take this voyage down without the risk of an implosion of the entire submersible itself. It's just, this is unfortunate, and this is just so happened to be the situation where the worst has happened. But once again, my condolences to the family and to those who knew and loved the 5 victims. And I hope and pray that you have some, peace, and, hopefully you can come and just speak about the people you knew and loved and continue to share their stories. And hopefully you guys learned something. I have. I've seen the documentaries with the Titanic and the simulations, and of course, any of the documentaries, especially from James Cameron, where he shows how the Titanic broke away and how it sunk. And split in two going down, and of course the pressure and the debris field and everything. But still, just seeing this simulation in real time is just heartbreaking. So I just, all right, I don't want to ramble on, but I hope you guys, like I said, check out the link for this simulation video. Check out their channel, and you guys continue to stay safe and take care of yourselves and each other. Give your loved ones a hug and tell them that you love them. And until the next one.